Hey, welcome back everyone to the Black Brain Trust. This is Economics, episode 249. I'm here with my co-facilitator, Dollar Will.
What's happening? What's happening, everybody? Peace, bro.
What's going on, dude?
All right, looks like we gotta just chill and folks file in. We got 9 people watching. What's up with people in the chat, man? Nobody wanna speak up in the chat,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Captain Sachi, Crypto Gang, Terrence Forrest Jr., you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wanted to let you. I meant to send you a explanation, man. Why I send that stuff so late, man. During the day, I can't even have nothing fundamental on my mind. I don't even read the news until after the market close.
Mm-hmm.
you know, so it's like whoa. So it's like it's like a rush of reading stuff after things close. It's interesting after the fact. It's actually more interesting after the fact.
Yeah, I'm actually just updating it now. I saw your email, so I added one item from that email. I'm adding it to the docket right now. So just give me a few seconds.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, it's a lot of stuff. We got as with the stuff from last week, we
mhm.
got a couple of shows. There's a lot been going on.
What'd you think about Lionel's crypto hangout from last night?
I enjoyed it a lot. I
Mm-hmm.
thought it was. I think that show on those Thursday nights is going to grow over time. I think it's going to be a big hit because the combination between the study group and that Thursday night, it's just going to get better over time because there'll be like a big group of people in that study group that'll really going to take over that Thursday night, and they all will understand what each other's talking about because they're all getting the certifications and stuff together. So it's gonna it'll just be more ideas, more people, different opinions, but the opinions will be based in some fact. More people that are like really on Lionel's level that really understand it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so over time, I think it's going to be awesome because people, I see a good number of people in that group. You know, that are willing to put in the time to learn all the information. So I thought that was a Thursday night. Last night was sign of more good things to come.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, shout out to Miss Archie, man. She's in the chat. Crypto chicks rock. Yep, I would definitely agree. So, um, Sauchi, what's going on, bro?
Yeah.
All right, let's get started, man. If you have not hit the like button already, please hit the like button and share the video if possible. There's a docket in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with. And just as an FYI, we are not certified financial planners. If you want a certified financial planner, look up one in your area on CFP.net. We do not give out financial advice on these hangouts.
Yeah. Everything I say are my opinions. These are my opinions. I have lots of opinions, but I'm not giving you advice. I'm just a dude on YouTube with lots of opinions about trading.
All right, so first item on the docket is from the BBC.com. Iran seizes 1,000 Bitcoin mining machines after power spike. Span this out. The action was taken. The action was taken following a spike in electricity consumption. Demand for power rose by 7% in June, and cryptocurrency mining was thought to be the main cause. An, an energy ministry spokesman told the local state-run media. One researcher said Bitcoin was gaining more and more attention in Iran as a potential means of storing wealth. Two of these Bitcoin farms have been identified with a consumption of 1 megawatt. Arash Nawab, an electricity official, told state television. Mining cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin involves connecting computers, usually specialized mining machines, to the currency network via the internet. By providing computing power for validating transactions on on that network, mining machine owners are rewarded with newly generated coins, making it a potentially lucrative exercise, especially when done on a large scale. Bitcoin mining has reportedly sprung up in a variety of locations in Iran. Everyone, everyone's talking about Bitcoin and how to get it," said Masa Auli Morandi, a researcher at the Oxford Internet Institute who grew up in Iran. With U.S. sanctions over its nuclear program hitting Iran financially, Iranians often discuss via social media the question of how wealth can be stored securely. She added, "Gold and U.S. dollars are long-standing popular suggestions. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are slowly coming up as a third alternative," she told the BBC. I always find this interesting that they're able to determine that the electricity spike is not attributed to, people putting ACs in their windows or, turning more fans on in their houses. It just has to do with Bitcoin, and somehow they've been accurate, I guess. I personally don't know how they do it. Electricity spikes happen all the time, especially in the summertime. It's just one of those things that.
Yeah, but they have a record. Of course, if they would have a lot of data before the Bitcoin or cryptocurrency era and now, and maybe there's a profile for how much current computers draw versus air conditioning units. So or I mean, you would know if like air conditioning sales, are up versus towers for mining. So I'm sure they got some way that they can make a good guess at it. Especially then you can cross-reference that with the volume traded in say a particular crypto within a certain time period. You can nail it down.
Well, they seem to be accumulating these coins, through the mining operation, not so much as trading.
Mm-hmm. Well, the volume would just be the activity. So if they're involved in the mining, they're contributing to that volume. Mm-hmm. So it's got to be correlation between that and electricity. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they've done just that. They've noticed that a certain type of I mean, these are all, of course, just wild guesses. I don't know, but I just know that when you start drilling down, especially in your world of security, internet security, you can do some pretty reliable profiles, based on consumption patterns. But I was interested in that story in that it feeds into my larger trading thesis in general of being a dollar versus energy and metals trader. And then my bigger opinion about cryptocurrency is that when the dollar finishes its run higher, because I'm still of the opinion that it's going higher. We're not there at the peak, but at some point we're going to be at that peak. And at that point, cryptocurrencies that are paired with the US dollar, they will be able to get a sustainable trend going because the dollar is going to be in a long-term downtrend at that point. And so now the dollar's in a long-term downtrend and people are not only making money trading cryptos, but we have this mining frenzy going on. That's going to create more of a draw on the electrical grid. Mm-hmm. So again, I'm a dollar versus energy and metals trader. So that speaks to a huge spike in energy.
Hmm.
So at that point, the technicals and the fundamentals will all be in accordance, you know. But we're not there yet. But that the future, that's all those dominoes are going to line up.
Hmm. All right, let me get to the next item on the docket is from Forbes.com. Shell invests in Ethereum hybrid that gives real power to the people. Expand this out. Shell Oil is continuing its exploration of blockchain with yet another investment in the technology first made popular by Bitcoin. The fifth largest oil and gas company in the world, valued at $262 billion, is investing an undisclosed amount in LO3, a New York startup using a modified version of the Ethereum blockchain to make it easier for individuals to buy and sell locally produced energy using existing network of power cables. While the Bitcoin blockchain lets users track the flow of value without the need of banks to audit the system, LO3's platform called Energy is designed to track the flow of energy as it is added to the shared local energy network, giving the neighbors who purchase the energy absolute certainty it really came from a windmill, a solar panel, or a gerbil running on a treadmill. If successful, LO3 and its competitors in the nascent transactive energy market could change the role of traditional electricity transmission and distribution companies like Con Edison in the United States and Western Power Distribution in England, from mere installers of underground cables to managers of more efficient distributed local energy grids. We see that its society we see that its society's ambition to live in a low carbon environment, says Shell Ventures investment director Corbin. LO3 is a platform that enables that. The investment announced today that is the investment that is announced today is part of a larger bridge investment round, also joined by Sumitomo Corporation Group based in Japan. Details of the investment are not being disclosed, though Corbin says he'll be joining LO3 as a board observer as part of the round and could come on as full board member pending possible future investment. Earlier plans to raise capital by selling tokens to be used on the platform via an initial coin offering ICO have been put on hold. However, the tokens called XRG are still expected to play a critical role in the platform when it goes live in 2020. The tokens will be used to incentivize use of the platform and will be required to access the distributed energy grid. Shell has the option to convert its investment into XRG tokens at the time of launch. Another token called Energy is being designed to let consumers sell data about their energy usage to third party companies at a later date. That's really interesting. Yeah, this is really interesting. If they're able to do, this is basically like, how can I find an equivalent to this? They're basically turning this into a filter, to determine what kind of power is being generated and how much is it generating. That's actually pretty cool. But I think the last part of it, of the article, really gets my attention because now they're talking about um, putting data, how allowing people to have control over their own data by selling it off, that they generate. This is different than what's happening right now because Facebook and some of these other companies just take your data and they sell it off without your permission. Well, not so much without your permission, but without you actually being compensated for it. So you generate this data, Facebook takes it, and then they sell it and they make a profit. But in this regard, This will allow you to maintain your data and then decide who you want to sell the data to and then make a profit that way.
Yeah, but what's the real value of my data alone?
Um, could be anything. I mean, it may not be PII. It could just be um, data that you generated because you looked at something like Netflix, or because you looked at a YouTube video, or because you drove to a certain store or something, or you live in a certain area. That could be the case. It may not always have to be personally identifiable information.
Hmm. So let's see. So you're looking at this and you're seeing value in this as a way to. So you're not looking at it as from a standpoint of energy, specifically energy. You're saying it has a more universal application. Is that what you're the way you're looking at it?
Yeah, it has a more universal application to it. I think what's happening here is um, data regulation standards across Europe and even in America that's coming now um, will take a lot of that data that is being generated by the user away from the company and put it back into the hands of the user. So in Europe with GDPR, which is General Data Protection Regulation, the charter basically says if a citizen of the European Union tells one of the tech companies that they want their data removed, you have to remove that data from every endpoint that it touched. If not, you can be fined for it in Europe. In America, it's a little bit different. If you lose a person's data, then you'll be fined. Anywhere between $5,000 to $50,000 per record. So with all that being said, the article stated that this creates a democracy and puts the power back into the hands of the people. In that regard, that they're referring to, this would actually be putting the power of the democracy back into the hands of the people, because now you have control over your own data, and then you can decide who gets to sell, who gets to buy it or sell it, who you sell it to.
So you're saying even when the data is aggregated, for a whole city or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
my contribution to that pool or aggregation, it's still got my signature on it and the blockchain, and it can be taken out. Is that what you?
They don't have the right to maintain it.
Oh, okay. So they can't even compile it without my. They can't add my part to it without my permission.
Actually, they would add your part to it if you already signed up for it, right? But you have the right. If you were a European citizen, you have the right to be removed from any of their activities and their endpoints. So endpoint being a device, right?
Right.
So whatever gets touched. So in
Right.
this regard, um, if if I'm a European citizen and I decide that um, I want my data deleted, they have to delete it. I think they have like a certain amount of days or a certain amount of hours or something like that to actually delete it. I don't think it's hours. I think it's days. It might be a month or something like that. I haven't read it in a while, but basically, if I have my data on a thumb drive or in my personal possession, the the tech companies can't make any money off of that.
Right. Actually, I thought of as you were talking, I was thinking about is there's a peculiar thing in I guess in union world, labor world. Some people don't want their contributions, part of their contribution, to be used for certain lobbying efforts and things like that. It's your right by law. It's already, this is like long before blockchain or any of that. You can say, yeah, okay, I'm paying my dues, but I don't want any part of it going to those lobbying efforts.
Right.
So yeah, so blockchain would even make those types of things easier to manage, and maybe get some I guess some proof, have a some documentation and really prove,
Hmm.
you know, where the money went, that yours wasn't part of it.
Hmm. We got 25 people watching and only 16 likes. if you're not going to participate in the chat, just please hit the like button. That's all we ask. All right, this next article is from CryptoBriefing.com. Miami Dolphins adopt Litecoin as official cryptocurrency. Let's bring this out. Proving once again that they are among the smartest species on the planet, a group of dolphins have begun adopting cryptocurrencies. Joke. Litecoin is now the cryptocurrency of the Miami Dolphins, marking the first time a football team has officially adopted a digital asset. In a momentous stride toward mainstream recognition and adoption, the Litecoin Foundation announced that this unique partnership creates a powerful alignment between Litecoin and one of the world's most recognizable sports brands in the Miami Dolphins. There is no small collaboration with a significant effort to integrate the Litecoin brand with in-game branding, advertising opportunities at Hard Rock Stadium, as well as inclusion across the team's various online properties and digital content. As a result of the integration, fans will now be able to use digital currencies for buying 50/50 raffle tickets. Litecoin and alien payments will enable attendees to purchase tickets using Litecoin or Bitcoin, with half of the proceeds going to the Miami Dolphins Foundation and its charitable causes. Raffle participants will also be able to buy tickets using the cryptocurrencies online, as well as at kiosks and sellers in Hard Rock Stadium. Charlie Lee, the founder and enthusiastic advocate of Litecoin, expressed the magnitude of such an agreement. This collaboration propels Litecoin in front of an audience of millions of people around the world at a time where adoption of cryptocurrencies continues to gain momentum and the ecosystem is able to support real-world use cases in ways previously not possible. Seeing this as an excellent tool for introducing a huge demographic to the coin, Lee continued, "We see this as a powerful way to raise awareness and educate people about Litecoin and cryptocurrencies on a tremendous scale." The Miami Dolphins Vice President and Chief Information Officer Kim Rome was equally positive, saying the Miami Dolphins are always looking for ways to enhance the fan experience, and this partnership with Litecoin provides the ability for guests to enjoy our 50/50 raffle while donating to a great cause. Litecoin continues to push adoption forward with initiatives with thousands of businesses allowing customers to pay with Litecoin. This isn't the first time Litecoin put its nose in sports. Last December, Charlie Lee announced that Litecoin will be the official cryptocurrency of the UFC 232. In addition, it looks like Charlie Lee and the Dolphins have more in common than partnerships. At least, according to the late Douglas Adams, they both knew when it was time to get out. This is interesting. I'm surprised that the Dallas Cowboys didn't do this, but Miami Dolphins, I guess you always need a place to start, some place of origin.
Yeah, that got my attention when he referred to them as one of the world's most recognized sports brands. I'm like, what? Are we talking about Miami Dolphins? But I think it's a good marketing strategy to build affinity with a younger demographic. Because Miami has been having difficulty selling tickets. There's been an issue there. College is stronger down there. College football, stronger. They outsell the Miami Dolphins, college teams. So, and isn't Serena one of the owners?
Serena?
I think she is. Doesn't she have an interest in the We'll go on. I'll find it while we talk, but I believe so. I think she has a minority ownership interest in the team. But having affiliating a crypto with a sports franchise that needs to sell tickets to a younger demographic, I think that's pretty slick, pretty forward thinking.
Well, when you consider what a stadium holds and how many fans it has, you're probably talking what, maybe close to 100,000, probably in fans, right?
Hmm.
You just added a whole new six-figure base to Litecoin that they did not have before. This is big for Litecoin, more so than it is to the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins will always live on as a franchise, but Litecoin, this is a big boost for for the currency itself, because they've been waning for quite some time, probably a year now. At one point, I think they were moving at like 150, 175 steady, and then they dropped to like $22, and then they spiked back up to wherever they are right now. But the point of the matter here is, a lot of people had jumped ship from Litecoin in the past, and then now you're adding close to six figure of a user base to the crypto that was not there before. Plus, it's a dedicated audience, right? It's not like some random Joe. These are actual dedicated Miami Dolphins fans, so they have money, right? They're a base that has money. If they can afford to buy tickets, they can afford to buy Litecoin.
Yeah, but check out this. What I found Googling. I don't know who still owns interest in the team now, but Venus and Serena joined Mark Anthony, Jennifer Lopez, Gloria, and Emilio Estefan, becoming limited ownership partners. Now that was back in 2015, and whether they still have an interest in it, I don't know. But that's a pretty young uh, group, urban chic kind of group, and so being hip with crypto. That's a good mix.
Hmm. All right.
Now they just have to win.
Mm-hmm.
They can beat the Patriots. They're not our problem. They're not Cowboys' problems.
Bring them on. All right. This next item is from CNBC.com. Trump, I'm not a fan of cryptocurrencies, and Facebook may need a banking charter for Libra. Stupid comments. All right, expand this out. U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday said he's not a fan of cryptocurrencies and suggested that Facebook may need a banking charter if the company wants to launch the digital token Libra. In a series of Twitter posts, Trump said cryptocurrencies are not money and unregulated crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior, including drug trade and other illegal activity. If Facebook and other companies want to become a bank, they must seek a new banking charter and become subject to the all banking regulations, said the president. Trump is not the only one who criticized Facebook's plan to introduce Libra. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire, and Bank of England Governor Mark Carney are among government leaders and central bank chiefs who have spoken up against Libra. Facebook declined to comment on Trump's Twitter post. I am not a fan of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies which are not money and whose value is highly volatile and based on thin air. Unregulated crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior, including drug trade and other illegal activity. Similarly, Facebook Libra's virtual currency will have little standing or dependability. If Facebook and other companies want to become a bank, they must seek a new banking charter and become subject to all banking regulations, just like other banks, both national and international. We have only one real currency in the USA, and it is stronger than ever, both dependable and reliable. It is by far the most dominant currency anywhere in the world, and it will always stay that way. It is called the United States dollar. Trump echoed many critics of cryptocurrencies, questioning how Bitcoin is valued and highlighting its price volatility. Many argue that those attributes count against the wider adoption of digital currencies. Cryptocurrencies are not money, and whose value is highly volatile and based on thin air, said Trump. In the last 24 hours alone, the price of Bitcoin against the dollar saw movements that would spark worries if they were seen in any major national currency. It touched a high of $12,033.74 and a low of $11,142.79, according to industry data site CoinDesk. The president said the dependable and reliable U.S. dollar should be the only one real currency in the USA. It is by far the most dominant currency anywhere in the world, and it will stay that way. It will always stay that way. It is called the United States dollar, said Trump. Despite Trump's criticism, the price of Bitcoin did not appear to move much immediately following his post, according to CoinDesk data. So, Trump.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand why, this late stage in the game with big financial institutions around the world embracing it. What's his concern? And the whole drug thing, it's not like, I hate to go here. It's not like only Pookie's going to benefit. No, there's like guys in three-piece suits. It was true, billionaires. If anything shady is going to go down with cryptocurrency, that's your profile. It's not the hood guy. It's the big shot executive 1% guys.
Well, I don't think that's his concern. I think what they're saying as a politician is that if you have competing currencies in your country, then that becomes a problem. I mentioned this last night. I attended a blockchain event and with a blockchain lawyer, Carol Van Cleef. She discussed that she was the first one to shut down digital currencies back in 2007, and which was e-gold, basically buying gold that was as a digital asset. And the U.S. government wanted that stuff shut down, and she was one of the people who shut it down. That being said, her relationship and experience with Washington says that they being Washington don't like the idea of digital currencies. They are very much Luddites in this area, so they worry about what a digital currency could do to the U.S. dollar, and they would be right in worrying about that because of the pace and adoption of cryptocurrencies could very well usurp the physical dollar itself.
I'm not disputing that. I guess what I'm saying is they could be aggressive in trying to stop it right now, but their interests, their forces, I'll say, major powerful forces that want it to exist. So for some period, I believe we're going to have crypto, and it's going to compete with the dollar. A whole lot of money is going to escape taxation, and then at some point they're gonna bring it under the authorities of the taxing agents and institutions. It will be taxed at some point. So I think right now in this beginning period, we need to just enjoy this debate about whether it's money and whether it's taxed, and just get the benefit while we can.
Well, he's really attacking Facebook, right? If Facebook goes forward with this Libra coin, then what they're basically trying to do is become a digital central bank within the United States of America. Basically, they become the Federal Reserve for cryptocurrency.
Right. It's a scale thing. It's like when we were talking about smaller companies, it's like, okay, yeah, I guess we can allow this thing to happen. When you start talking about Facebook having a currency, this is like what we were talking about a year ago when we were projecting what the impact of Facebook having a cryptocurrency, how that would impact things in the world. We were talking about this a year ago, and It's like, so it's a much different conversation. If you're talking about 50 million, I'm just being facetious, but all these various cryptocurrencies out here, no single one of them large enough to really be no threat. Okay, but now when you say Facebook or Amazon, having a cryptocurrency, now that changes things, because it's they are a standard. Something that big would become a standard just because of the amount of money that flows through, or the amount of people interacting, whether they're spending money or not. But just if you have people together in one common space in the form of Facebook, it's easy to pump anything down that pipeline, and that can become a new legitimate competing currency. Yeah, it would be disruptive. Yeah, it definitely changes the seriousness of the conversation.
Yeah, so that's what they're looking at. Because once it gets started, once the ball gets rolling, the amount of influence that Facebook has could easily make a case study and a game changer for other countries. The only problem here is that I personally, this is just my opinion, not anything to do with the brain trust or anything like that, but my personal opinion here is that Facebook can't even manage people's personal identifiable information, the PII. They are losing people's PII, I think 2 or 3 times. I think WhatsApp had an issue, Instagram had an issue, and then Facebook had an issue protecting people's information. That being said, I don't know if I trust Facebook with managing money without some form of government oversight, and I think that's what Trump is getting to in his piece, in his tweets, that somehow, some way, there needs to be some form of banking charter instituted with Facebook, and if they're trying to get around that, that can cause a serious backlash. That can bring the right and the left together to say, yeah, I think Facebook needs to be broken up. Like Elizabeth Warren has been calling for.
Wow. I don't think that Facebook will be broken up until you get something like this cryptocurrency. And even then, it may not if it may not have the impact, because these social media networks, they can pop up really fast. One thing can a year from now we could be talking about another hot thing. So it's like they're not really going to be able to ever really get ahead of it until we get to that point where cryptocurrencies are taxed. That's going to happen. But right now, taxing, it's like they're kind of stuck. It's like you don't want to really kill it because it has some potential good, and there are competing forces in the world that want it for various reasons. So if you tax it, you'll kill it. So I think what we're likely to see is kind of hands off, watch it grow, and then once it gets mass adoption, and you can see what the problems are, then we're gonna need some amount of regulation. We're gonna get it, and for no other reason, just because there's money to be made there. These governments are not going to allow all these transactions to go down without the participants paying a toll. You got to pay the toll. But not in the beginning. So I think they're smart to kind of lay back and let it happen for now. We're talking Facebook, and that, put the regulations in place, make Facebook keep great records, and then when it's time, the government can just swoop in and take over the records and tax everybody.
We got 38 people watching and 25 likes. Again, if you're not going to participate in the chat, please hit the like button. It's all we ask for. All right, let me get to this next article. All right, this one is from Bloomberg.com. Walmart supplier says Chinese factories in desperate state. The world's largest supplier of consumer goods says China's factories are getting in urgent and desperate as worried U.S. retailers accelerate a move out of the country amid heightened trade tensions. China will see more factory shutdowns as the trade war that's roiled the global supply chain exacerbates in exodus, said Spencer Fung, chief executive officer of Li and Fung Limited, the company which designs, sources, and transports consumer goods from Asia for some of the world's biggest retailers, including Walmart and Nike, is being pushed by American clients to shift production out of China. U.S. clients are definitely very, very worried, Fung said in an interview with Bloomberg. Everyone is making razor thin margins already, and most people have a huge percentage in China. So if the biggest source increases the price by 25%, they are worried, he said, referring to the scale of tariffs threatened on all Chinese imports to the U.S. President Donald Trump. Though Fung didn't specify Walmart by name, the U.S. retailer is the company's second biggest consumer after Kohl's, accounting for 7.6% of revenue, according to Bloomberg data. Because of its position as a middleman connecting American retail giants to low-cost Asian factories, Li and Fung has a unique ground-level perspective of the seismic shifts taking place around the world due to the trade war. Although the U.S. and China have resumed talks on a deal, there are growing signs that the global supply chain, long reliant on China as the factory to the world, is being permanently transformed. Intel has said it's reviewing its global supply chain, while others, including Apple and Amazon, are reportedly doing the same. Nobody's investing, nobody's buying. The trade war is causing people to stop investment because they don't know where to put the money, the Silicon Valley trained CEO said. Many people put the money into Vietnam with one tweet, he said, referring to Trump's habit of announcing American trade policy over the social media too. The Hong Kong-based supply chain and logistics provider, which relies heavily on trade between the world's two biggest economies to make its fortunes, will see China's contribution to the total sourcing fall from 59% in 2015 to less than half this year for the first time. While Chinese factories suffer, manufacturers in other Asian hubs become beneficiaries up to a point. American retailers have already taken up all the manufacturing capacity in Vietnam in their rush out of China, said Fung, highlighting the lack of scale that prevents other destinations from fully substituting for China's manufacturing might. Vietnam, for example, is completely full, he said. There's no extra capacity for the U.S. companies to get in. Chinese factories, meanwhile, are lowering asking prices in their desperation, creating an opportunity for European and Japanese consumer brands, Li and Fung, advising its non-U.S. clients to move in and take advantage of the mature supply chain and lower costs. It is a buying opportunity for European and non-U.S. retailers, Fung said. In China, there are a lot of factories with less and less orders. They are offering actually pretty good prices to anybody. Li and Fung, which started its trading business 113 years ago, has seen a steep profit decline in the last 5 years as the rise of e-commerce platforms like Alibaba and Amazon cut out the middleman, and its retail clients face waves of store closures. Fung said that core operating profit will continue to decline this year, but he stressed that he's seeing the bottom now, I guess. The company shares, which fell 71% last year, climbed 2.7% in Hong Kong trading Wednesday, breaking a 6-day losing streak. Fung, whose great-grandfather Fung Park Lu established the company in 1906, sees the havoc of currently being wreaked in the established global supply chain as an opportunity for Li and Fung's reemergence. Its 50-country sourcing network means it can nimbly shift out of China as clients desire, and its investments in technology like 3D virtual sampling will cut costs and save time, he said. The company is at the tail end of a 3-year restructuring plan that simplified its structure through divesting non-core businesses and streamlining operations. It's like you're flying a plane, you're losing altitude, said Fung. But now, one after another, I see the indicators turning green. I can actually see that the altitude loss is reducing and we're actually pulling that plane back up. So this is interesting. We've read some of this stuff before about on some other articles about the docks in California and not receiving or not being able to receive goods coming out of China, that they just basically sit there for 2 or 3 weeks, depending on what the goods are. And we also heard about retailers ordering ahead to get of the tariffs to actually get their goods in early before the tariffs actually hit. And we see that now that the factories in China are actually depleting, not getting enough orders. Different companies moving their supply chain logistics to other countries such as Vietnam. I've talked about this last year. Vietnam is a hotspot now in Southeast Asia. It's even hotter than China itself. So I always thought, and I've always been under the impression, that it would behoove American companies to open up factories in Africa to get around all of these trade war tariffs. And one, it cuts down the shipping time, right? So for a ship to go from Africa to or West Africa to Maryland or New York would probably be about a day, whereas it coming from China could take up to 2 weeks.
Right. So that would be an improvement over wait times for items from GearBest. Inside joke. Somewhere my father somewhere is laughing.
Also, this will boost the African economy and sticks their nose up to China big time. Because if that's what Trump intends on doing, is squeezing China, what better way to squeeze China than to move all of the production to African countries? Give those countries they already have the AGOA, African Growth and Opportunity Act, which allows goods that come from Africa, that are made in Africa, to be imported into the United States tariff-free. They started this in 2001. So if I was in the Trump cabinet and I was advising Trump, that would be the game plan that I would go with. Allow American companies to open up their factories in Africa. The tariffs of import would already be on the table as being 0%, if not 0.1%, which means that the 25% would be nullified, and they would see return on investment, ROI, almost immediately. before they even stop building. The return on investment is already there.
Right. In the short term, that could work, but
In the long term, that would work, because if the whole objective is to weaken China, then you already made your mark.
do you think that's the long-term goal is to weaken China?
Absolutely, they have to weaken China. If China is going at the rate that they're going now, by 2025, 2030, they will be such a force to reckon with. The United States would have no other choice but to go to war with them physically. There is no sharing of power. They don't believe in that. At least at this point, the United States does not see themselves as being seeing the world as multipolar. They see the world as being unipolar, where they extend their reach across all bodies of water. They already control the Pacific, the Middle Eastern theater, and the European theater. And they also have the Monroe Doctrine, which is basically controlling of Latin America and the Caribbean. So with that being said, they see China as a threat in these areas, because China is at this breakout period would, by and large, gain so much economic power that they will be unstoppable going forward, because their momentum is not going to slow down. It's only going to keep going up.
Well, the birth rate can stop them.
In which way?
They don't have enough women. They have a population issue as well.
Well, that's for now.
Well, that's what we said, long term. My question was in the sense of long term. So some of this, I think the United States and China kind of need each other.
Well, yeah, the economies need each other, but not politically, right? They don't really need each other politically. The United States has a political issue with China. They don't have an economic issue with China. They have a political issue with China. The more China takes on these physical and manufacturing loads, that's only boosting up their economy. We already know that they have 5G infrastructure already in place, so they're already ahead of the United States in that area. Their scientific research and innovation is 1-for-1 on par with the United States. That's relatively quick. They started this plan in 1979 or 1977, if I remember correctly. Right, this one child per household policy, which reduced all of these Chinese people that were in poverty and lifted 100 million people out of poverty between 1977 and 2003.
Without China, where are we going to go for loans and good manufacturing at low prices?
Mexico, Latin America. They could go to Haiti, exploit Haiti as they've already been doing, but I don't know the status of Haiti right now. I know that at one point Haiti was manufacturing goods for Old Navy and the Gap and Banana Republic on the island, and then they were being,
What about the loans?
The loans,
yeah.
U.S. government can continuously print money, so they have a Federal Reserve that would do that.
We'll see about that. But that's where we are. That's kind of where we are right now. You can, to a point, you can do that. You can't. Well, that's the big debate. Can we keep propping up this market? Can we keep making the stock market go higher? We're very close to an answer to that question. I don't think we're counting in months or we're not counting in years. We're gonna know. We're gonna know before this year is out. We may know before this summer is over. We may know before July is over. Okay, because we're right at a but not to take it too far enough. But yeah, how far can we just keep propping this thing up? Can is it all a construct that we can just manipulate forever? I say no. My opinion is no. At some point you strain resources. You strain resources. Though we can say, the dollar is fiat, but we have a supply issue, an inventory glut right now.
Mhm.
So I don't want to go too far away from for my own clarity about what's going on with China and all of that. It still comes down to managing this inventory glut, you know, and we can't really afford the full prices to go much higher. Wages aren't keeping up.
You're seeing the United States in decline, for lack of a better description.
I see a global correction.
Global correction, yes. United States in decline, absolutely. You're seeing it.
Uh,
No way they can recover from this trade war in the way that it's going.
um, I think America has another push. I think that America will be able to survive. Uh, Pretty, we'll be okay. It's gonna be rough during this correction, and at the end of the correction, we'll crank up the engine again. We got another push. It's gonna take a while for any change of power. It's not going to happen. We're not talking 5 or 10 years.
All right, this next one is from CNBC.com. Trump says China is letting us down by not buying U.S. farm products during trade talks. China is not purchasing U.S. crops as the world's two largest economies scramble to end their trade war, President Donald Trump said Thursday. The president tweeted that Beijing is letting us down by not buying American agricultural products that they said they would. The development could bode poorly for efforts to reach a trade agreement, as U.S. officials have said they expect China to repurchase or to purchase crops as part of their ongoing talks. Washington and Beijing have re-engaged in trade talks in recent weeks after discussions collapsed in May. At the time a developing deal fell apart, Trump accused China of backing out of major commitments. Stock market watchers have followed the conflict between U.S. and China closely. A sustained trade war could damage not only American businesses but also the global economy. After Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping met at the G20 summit in Japan last month, the sides agreed to move forward with talks and hold off on imposing new tariffs. But the U.S. president left the meeting with the expectation that China would buy American crops. We're holding on. We're holding on tariffs, and they are going to buy farm product, he said at the time. Increased agricultural purchases serve more than one purpose for Trump. He has long pushed for the U.S. to cut its trade deficit with China. Trump also seeks to help farmers in key electoral states recently punished by flooding low crop prices in the U.S. trade conflict with Beijing. On on Tuesday, Trump's top economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, said the White House considered it very, very important for China to buy farm products as the trade talks continues. The U.S. put the U.S. has put tariffs on $250 billion in Chinese goods. China has slapped duties on 110 billion in American products. After trade talks collapsed in May, both Washington and Beijing increased rates for some of the existing tariffs. So, um, Trump feels that these guys should buy agriculture products during, the tariffs being put in place. That would be like, adding gratuity to a bill that they didn't pay for a meal that they didn't pay for, and that they didn't even eat. At this point, what's happening with China is that they're basically saying we don't really need to buy your agricultural products anymore. We can go to Russia, we can go to Brazil, we can go to Africa, we can go to the Middle East, and we can go to Latin America and get our goods. We don't have to actually talk to you about anything. This is going to destroy a lot of American our producers who relied on China buying pork. You know, they don't need to buy pork fried pork anymore because they can get their pork from somewhere else. And pork fried rice can be made from any other any other pork that's being imported from other places. So with that being said, I think they've relied on Turkey. They've definitely relied on Egypt, and a couple other countries coming out of Africa as well. They have bought their agriculture product. Yeah.
So
US,
where's the I guess the point of pain where both sides realize that come to the determination that uh, the tariff war is hurting, causing more harm than good. Where is that point?
when you see businesses, American businesses going out of business because they can't recover.
Oh yeah, we definitely going to have companies go under. I mean, yeah. When I say this, I wasn't making light of the correction and so, oh well, no, this is going to be, historically bad, but it's going to hurt all over. It's not, just America going to take blows. This is going to be global pain. But the tariffs is not helping, not helping matters. At some point, I'm just trying to imagine a scenario that would cause the tariffs to end.
A scenario where that would cause the tariffs to end would be the U.S. Removes all tariffs.
I'm sorry, say that again.
A scenario that forces the U.S. to a scenario where the result is the end game would be the U.S. Basically stopping all tariffs. Because remember, the U.S. launched the tariffs against China, not China launching it against them. China's move is actually a mirror of U.S. trade tariffs to begin with. They didn't actually want that, right? Because they ship out more than they take in from the United States. So that's
Right.
so they can only go so far with it themselves. So they're saying, well, we've practically run out of options on our side. So what else do you guys want? Okay, well, we're going to keep the trade war going up to 25%, if not more, 30 to 35%. Moving it up to 30 to 35% would send a ripple effect across the whole entire global market.
Well, it could make this correction that we technical traders see as imminent. It could bring it about quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this sounds terrible, but I'm rooting for that. I want it to be fast. I want it to be horrible, and I want it to be over. Like having it grind on for a long time would be almost unbearable. But just a swift decline, it would be painful. It would be brutal. But the quicker we get where we're going in this correction, the quicker we can get back into production.
Mm-hmm.
Ramping up the engine again for growth. That's what I'm rooting for. So if you're telling me that the tariffs makes it worse, it's adding pressure to American companies in an environment where growth is already slowing. It's like, if you're telling me that these tariffs is like shoving them when they're already standing on the edge of the cliff, I'm rooting for it. Because a long, slow thing, man, that was the stress of it would kill us.
Yeah. I don't know how much they would benefit, right? 25% on $250 billion of goods. I'm not seeing where the money is going, the 25% tariff, right? I'm not seeing where it's going. who's benefiting from this. United States has a lot of issues, and infrastructure is a big issue for them. Failing bridges, potholes everywhere, outdated electrical infrastructure, water infrastructure. You know, a lot of the pipes are due by 2020 to be replaced in this country if they have not already been replaced because they've hit their 100-year mark.
Don't the tariffs end up coming back to the government I guess in theory be able allowing them to be able to address those things that you're mentioning?
Not if not if their business is going out of business, right? Because of the tariffs, right? Stores are closing because they're not able to sell as many goods. Amazon and Alibaba creeping into their areas and basically cutting out these middlemen, as the other article was pointing out. This is having major ramifications on top of the fact that we're at the transitioning phase into the fourth industrialized economy, where you have these .com tech companies stepping in and making strides in areas that traditional brick and mortar businesses, such as your farmers and so on and so forth, were already involved in. This is really hurting them because remember FedEx, UPS, DHL, they still have to make their deliveries of parcels. Well, if they're not importing a whole lot of goods, they're not going to have to make as many deliveries, and so the cost benefit for shipping at certain times and making certain flight destinations and so on and so forth isn't really benefiting them either. So this is having a ripple effect across the whole entire supply chain. We had our good brother MOT, shout out to Man of Tomorrow. He talked about the truckers. They're hurting big time because of this trade war.
Correct.
Some of them are going out of business because
Correct.
they can't handle it.
Well, I guess my point or my opinion is we would still be in bad shape even if it wasn't the tariff, even if we didn't have these tariffs. Tariffs are making it worse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was already slowing down, but when you add the tariffs on top of economy naturally slowing down, so we have one part of it is natural. Okay, the economy is just overblown, bloated, slowing down. That's natural. Then you have this policy, this artificial thumb on it, you know, slowing it down even more. The tariffs. That's kind of the way I look at it. We would still be in a bad situation. It's just the tariffs making it worse for now.
Mm-hmm.
But if they can steer money, if the United States can somehow you know, capture some money, but let me put it this way: a lot of these we're gonna have a lot of businesses go out of business. Period. Whether we had these tariffs or not, but they're gonna go out of business faster because of these tariffs. You know, but if the government can end up with more money in the form of, say, you know, you impose the tariffs and somehow you get it back through taxes on the businesses, you know, somehow get the 25 cents to show up, then that's a plus for the company. I mean, for the country in theory. Because you got to pay out these benefits, man. I mean, we're gonna have people in soup lines. You know, we're gonna need money for that.
All right, let me get to this next article from NBCNews.com. Drop in Chinese imports of U.S. goods shows trade war damage spreading. Chinese demand for American goods has tanked, evidence that economic damage from the trade war isn't just hurting China, but the United States as well. We just talked about this. On a year-over-year basis, Chinese imports of American goods dropped by 31% in June. Economists say this indicates that the Chinese economy, which was already decelerating, is continuing to slow its rate of growth. A country's imports are indicative of its economy. A strong economy always imports more. This weak import number is an indication of the weaker economic growth in China, said Zhui Ren, managing director and portfolio manager at Penn Mutual Asset Management. It's more reflective of China's weak domestic demand, said Jeff Inge, chief economist, Asia at Continuum Economics. Said the data reflected weaker domestic demand and slowing growth. We expect the GDP growth to stabilize at a low level in the coming quarters. He said, "I expect growth at 6% in 2020. Only in 2020 do I expect it below." China's first quarter GDP growth rate was 6.4%, but economists polled by Reuters that expect that to fall to 6.2% for the second quarter when the Chinese government reports it on Monday. The sharp drop in U.S. imports also is reflective of how tit for tat tariffs are prompting China to shift its purchases of goods to other countries at the expense of export dependent sectors of the American economy. We talked about that earlier. The motivation is twofold, said Monica DeBole, a senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics. On one hand, yes, it's retaliatory. A second part of the reason might be that tariffs make goods more expensive, she said. Buying from other countries is more attractive. No shit. In addition to the contraction of imports, Chinese exports to the U.S. fell by nearly 8%, while China's trade surplus grew by 3% to roughly $39 billion. This does not bode well for the future of U.S.-China trade negotiations, experts say. Sooner or later, President Donald Trump will realize he's not getting any of the things he asked for from China, said Mark Williams, chief Asia economist at Capital Economics. The president has already been pressing for that on Twitter, saying on Thursday, China is letting us down in that they have not been buying the agricultural products from our great farmers that they said they would. On Friday, he defended his protectionist stance in a series of tweets, saying tariffs are a great negotiating tool, a great revenue producer, and accusing China of devaluing its currency. In addition to the plummeting Chinese demand for American goods overall, Williams said Trump seemed to have given more than he got in return during his meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping during the G20 summit last month, particularly with regard to relaxing restrictions on American technology access. Mr. Trump has given ground, easing the sanctions on Huawei. It's hard to see the current truce in the trade war lasting, Williams said. The longer the two sides remain at loggerheads, the more it costs the global economy. If you look at the global import-export data, it's coming down across the board. That's basically an indicator that the global GDP growth is going down, Ren said. This is a situation Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell and other Fed officials are watching closely. In his prepared testimony to Congress this week, Powell expressed concern about the damage trade tensions were inflicting on economic growth, both at home and abroad, he says, saying cross currents such as trade tensions and concerns about global growth have been weighing on economic activity and the outlook. So they see the writing on the wall that this is way more damaging than what they anticipated.
Right. And I'm this talk about the rate cut or a rate cut. I don't think we're gonna see it. I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think it's not quite that simple of cutting the interest rate. If you cut the interest rate, I think it's very key at this time for people to watch two charts. Watch that 30-year bond yield chart, that thing looks like it's reversing, going up. And pay attention to the dollar chart. If that really gets going and reverses too, it's going to be if you cut the interest rate while and the other currencies around the world, the other countries abandon their currency and start buying US dollars. I mean, abandon is too strong of a word, but if they flee their currency to seek the safety of the US dollar, I can't see us cutting the interest rate while everyone is buying it, and what impact that will have. If the dollar is rising higher, what is it? What's how? And the rest of the world is buying dollars and giving up their currency. I don't see what the interest rate, uh, how that's going to work, or if that'll happen to begin with. If you have something everybody is demanding, how can you not charge more for it? So I think we're going to see a hike over a cut, and that would be disastrous too. Okay, so yeah, this is not looking good.
Mm-hmm. All right, let me get to this next one. An estimated 12,000 shops could close by the end of 2019. This one is from Yahoo Finance. The retail apocalypse isn't showing any signs of slowing down. 6 months into 2019, there have already been 20% more store closings announced than in all of 2018, according to a new report from global market research Core Insight Research. Based on Core Insight Research figures in retailers' earning reports, more than 7,000 stores are slated to shutter this year, with thousands of locations already gone. Bankrupt footwear company Payless Shoe Source, which closed its remaining U.S. stores last week, accounts for about 37% of the closings. The going out of business sales and liquidation of other brands is expected to continue. Core Insight estimates closures could reach 12,000 by the end of the year, the report said. CoreSight, which has offices in Manhattan, London, and Hong Kong, tracked the 5,864 closings in 2018, which included all Toys R Us stores and hundreds of Kmart and Sears locations. The record year for closing was 2017, with 8,139 shuttered stores, Core Insight found. This included an earlier round of Payless closings. The entire H. Gregg electronics and appliance chain, and hundreds of Sears and Kmart stores. The pain is expected to continue into the future years, according to an April report from UBS Securities. UBS analyst said 75,000 more stores would need to be shuttered by 2026 if e-commerce penetration rises to 25% from its current level of 16. A separate analysis by UBS said tariffs on Chinese imports could put $40 billion of sales in 12,000 stores at risk. The market is not realizing how much brick and mortar retail is incrementally struggling, and how new 25% tariff could force widespread store closures. UBS analyst Jay Soul wrote in the May report, "We think potential 25% tariffs on Chinese imports could accelerate pressure on these companies' profit margins to the point where major store closures become a real possibility." I think we went over this before, but Payless, Gymboree, Dress Barn, Charlotte Russe, Shopko, Charming Charlie, and Lifeway Christian Resources. Family Dollar, 390. Fred's, 442. Chico's, 74. GNC, 233. Wow. the Gap roughly 230 in the next 2 years. Walgreens, sorry, 195. Foot Locker, 165 total, includes stores outside the U.S. Signet Jewelers, the parent company of Kay, Zales, and Jared, said it would close another 150 stores. Pier 1 Airports, 57.
See, this list is huge. Everybody
It
should
is,
really look at how long this list is. I look at a list like this is like some macroeconomic stuff. It's not. This is not tariff. Tariff is making it happen faster, but this is what that huge correction looks like. That people have been talking about for years. This is what it looks like. The tariffs is making it worse, but this is it. I just I can just kind of see how it's setting up that people are seeing a cause and effect relationship between the tariffs and these closures. You know, I don't think it's cause and effect like that.
well, I think it's accelerating it, right? So
Yeah,
maybe they may have had specific dates on when they were going to close certain locations, but now that things are moving up, and they're not making as much money as they anticipated and projected, um, they're like, this got to be shut down now.
correct. Why delay? Why avoid the rush?
Well,
Jump now.
because they still have to pay rent, right? So if they're paying rent and they're not pulling in enough money to actually pay rent because of this trade war, these are retailers. So retailers, 80% of retail goods come from out of China, up to 80%. So if
Right.
they're seeing that and they're seeing 80% of their goods with 25% tariffs on it, they're negative in going into this.
And
Somebody is looking at somebody in corporate is saying we were going to close in December, but August 1st, we got to go August 1st, man.
And not only that, when in other shows we talked about mergers, and I said, while back, that when you get it to the top of a cycle, those mergers pick up. So, okay, so now you got companies want to come together. They know they're going to need to restructure anyway. So why not, close some stores and merge?
Mhm. Right.
So it's a lot. No, okay, then we hear these other stories that employers can't find enough workers. You got a lot of retail places can't find enough teenagers to do that type of work. And so now we have all of these retail places closing. That problem of we can't find enough retail workers, that's gonna be self-correcting. They're gonna close enough stores where we're not gonna have that problem anymore. We
Well,
can't find enough low wage retail workers because
well, on
they're going to be the laid off people from all these places.
on top of the fact that that's what the border war is about, right? So all these melanated people coming up from Central America or coming through Central America as a conduit would have possibly have worked those jobs.
Right.
And unfortunately, the border war is actually impacting it just as much. Border war, tariffs, and a slowing economy, it does nothing for retail. I mean, maybe I don't need that flat screen TV right now. I can probably wait till maybe Black Friday.
Well, and a lot of Americans, maybe they don't care about that low wage retail job because they're gainfully employed right now. 2 years from now, that could be we could be in a different situation. People
Hmm.
could be fighting over that retail job, and the paranoia, say, of our president
Hmm.
uh, about people crossing the border to take those jobs. We say that, hey, he's overreacting right now. 2 years from now, we may not feel the same way. We may sound more like the president.
Hmm. All right, let me get this.
Guys with master's degrees going to, applying to work in the dollar store.
The economy's doing bad when you see things like that.
Right. Right. I
Yeah,
noticed that this.
at least he can say he's a manager.
Right. I have noticed an uptick. It seems to be like in the caliber of vehicles parked in the. It's anecdotal, but just kind of pay attention to those things. You know, because I'm cheap. I go in the dollar store, and I see people coming in there. It's a different crowd than what I normally see. I'm seeing the suit and tie crowd coming in there. Look, someone that looks like they're a manager type. I'm like, it doesn't add up.
Mm.
I'm starting to see that more.
All right, this one is from NPR. Student debt forgiveness sounds good. What might happen if the government did it? Americans owe about $1.6 trillion in student loan debt. That's about twice the current budget for the Defense Department and around 22 times the budget for the Education Department. About one in every six American adults who owes money on a federal student loan. So it makes sense that the candidates for the 2020 presidential election have proposed ways of dealing with this debt to allow millions of Americans to move on. Their proposals vary. Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts says she would forgive up to $50,000 in student loan debt for 42 million Americans. Her plan would cancel up to $50,000 in debt for individuals with a household income of under $100,000. The plan wouldn't take away debt for people with a household income of above 250K. Those in the middle would have loans canceled because of how much they make. The more you earn, the less you would be forgiven. Warren says it. Warren says she'd institute a tax on the wealthiest Americans to come up with the money for this. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders has, has proposed a seemingly simple plan canceling student debt for all borrowers who carry it. He says it'll save $3,000 per year for the average borrower. Sanders says he'll create a Wall Street speculation tax taxing stock, bond, and derivative trades.
Damn you.
hmm These plans to eliminate debt come in tandem with proposals to decrease or eliminate college costs, which prompt questions of their own. But what exactly might happen if the government simply wiped out student loans? For one, it would cost a lot of money. Eliminating all student loan debt would cost somewhere around $1.6 trillion, though the exact cost is anyone's guess. Sanders says that his plan, which includes making all public colleges in the U.S. free, would cost $2.2 trillion. Warren's overall education plan, including free public college, would cost $1.25 trillion, she says. Her plan for loan forgiveness, would cost about $640 billion, according to a report for her campaign. Though the authors note that a precise estimate is challenging. Both Warren and Sanders says wiping out debt en masse would stimulate the economy. One 2018 study found that this could be true. The researchers, including a senior economic advisor to Sanders' presidential campaign, found that canceling all student debt would lift GDP and decrease unemployment. This is very interesting because this only comes after the fact that Robert Smith um, did what he did for Morehouse. Um, what do you think about this, Double?
Um, I would never vote for Bernie Sanders with that proposal. That one. Remember, I'm a Democrat, but when you turn, when you close, when you punish people for investing. I mean, he's like basically creating a ghetto. It's making they keep making it harder and harder for the working class person to get rich in America the way that the rich got rich.
Mhm.
It's like we don't need another obstacle to gaining wealth through investing. Why must it be harder for us than to get rich, gain wealth via investing? Why should it be harder for us than it was for the 1%? They keep making it harder for us. Don't tax the the activity of investing in derivatives. If you want to go after people with money, go after people with money. Don't tax um, the middle class and the poor who are trying to gain access to wealth through the same road that others have traveled. It makes no sense. It's like it's almost like he's not really support a friend to the poor and the working class. It's no way he could think that's a good idea. Just take the money from the people that have it. Everyone investing in derivatives is not rich.
Mhm.
It's crazy.
I,
So
I I think.
when you hear people, when you hear your brothers and sisters on YouTube talking about investing in trading options and futures and things like that, that's what Bernie's saying. He wants to punish us. Why not do something real progressive? Like, if you make, there's no way around, in my opinion, a fair solution is you cannot treat everybody equally. You can't treat poor and middle income people the same way that you treat the uber rich. So if you want to implement a plan like that, exempt people from it that make less than a certain amount of money so that we can grow the bottom to get to that level, where they are taxed, but at least you allow them to get out of uh, poverty or even middle class status. And then in the process, we redistribute wealth more evenly. Or we're not reach. Well, I guess you would be redistributing, but we'll be earning it. It's already harder right now. The rich already came up under much more generous rules than we have today. And so he's talking about making it even harder. So if a rich person has to pay a little more in taxes because they're trading derivatives, they're still going to be rich, but you will create fewer rich people if you put that same rule in. There'll be fewer middle class and poor people that'll ever make it to wealth because of that policy. But he's so short-sighted. He's just looking at how much money will be collected. But he's also nailing the door shut, keeping people that are poor or middle class at that level. So we can't be that so confused and nearsighted as to say, well, we got the money to relieve the debt of the people, with the college loan debt. But okay, but now we got this tank in front of the door that keeps you at the middle class
Or below.
or below, right? We can't. So no, he would never get my vote. I'll vote for Trump again before I vote for him for that one rule alone.
All right, this next one is from fastcompany.com. Last one on the docket. How a basic income could deliver reparations for people of color. In June, the Atlantic writer Ta-Nehisi Coates testified before Congress in support of H.R. 40, a bill that would establish a commission to study reparations, repayment for the wrongs inflicted on people of color in the U.S. Through slavery and decades of racial bias and segregation. This was 5 years after Coates published his blockbuster article, The Case for Reparations, which cracked open the dialogue around the need to thoughtfully and deliberately compensate for the ways in which Black people in America have been systematically disadvantaged. At the time this conversation was evolving, another idea, basic income, was gaining momentum. The concept of basic income revolves around giving Americans living below a certain income threshold a flat payment to supplement their earnings and lift them out of poverty. Because more than 1 in 5 black people live in poverty, 2.5 times the rate of white people who do. Politicians who are now advocating for basic income like policies says that they says that what they are proposing is just a step toward racial justice. But could it go further? Could a basic income designed deliberately be a way to deliver reparations to people who have faced historic disadvantages in the U.S. Economy? In a newspaper for the progressive think tank Roosevelt Institute, Jhumpa Bhattacharya proposes that a basic income program could be rolled out in a way that both boosts the incomes of people living in poverty while also intentionally closing the wealth gaps that has that have resulted from discrimination. Bhattacharya is a vice president of programs and strategy at the Insight Center for Community Economic Development, a research organization dedicated to advancing uh, advancing economic security. In her work, she focuses on understanding why wealth disparities exist in the U.S. and how to close them. The racial wealth divide in the U.S. is profound. Today, the 400 richest white families in the U.S. own more wealth than all black families and a quarter of Latino families combined. Since the 1980s, black wealth in the U.S. has actually declined by half. Gender is the site of another extreme wealth divide. Women in general take home fewer earnings than men, but beyond that, they are often shouldered with caretaking responsibilities like childcare that are not supported by the company and by the economy, and consequently are a source of financial strain. Looked at through the lens of wealth, the asset the one owns over what he over one owes. Women are particularly disadvantaged compared to men. On average, women own just 32 cents to every dollar owned by men. In this system, women of color are especially disadvantaged. As the idea of basic income gains popularity, Bashara tells fast companies it, fast company it's a sign that people in the U.S. are willing to confront the fact that many people are struggling to reach financial stability in the economy. But any new idea like this has to have a reckoning in it around racial and gender inequality, she says. We have to be accounting for the way government sponsored policies have led to the inequalities we see today. I'm not going to read this whole thing. I think you should read it for yourself. I mean, we've talked about this before. Probably a few weeks ago, there was an article about I think Massachusetts was actually looking at UBI as a form of as a case study for historic inequities as well as racism, right? Institutional racism. I'm saying all that to say that if Black people were to get reparations, it would not be a lump sum. It would just be monthly payments as a way to compensate for the 400 years of disenfranchisement. I don't know if money can really resolve all that.
I think that we should be incensed anytime the conversation of universal income is mentioned in concert with reparations. Those are two different conversations, and we just need to be livid anytime anybody want to have both of those conversations in one. It's nothing reparative about giving me reparations and then something being universal.
I don't think that's what they're arguing.
Why even have? I don't understand how both can be in one conversation.
What I'm gathering from these discussions is that if people were to be, have you seen reparations ever been doled out before?
I know that it has happened. Yes.
No, but I'm saying, have you ever seen everybody receive it in your time?
No.
Okay, so what they're saying is that if a payment was to go out, how would it look like, right? So the way UBI works is it compensates people based on a certain metric. So if you were going to have reparations, the form of reparations would look something like a UBI.
I'm sorry. Go back. You said UBI what? No, explain it. Explain UBI again. The universal part.
No, you're looking at the words. I'm saying the compensation of UBI is what they're looking at, right? So it's government backed guarantee. That's what they're looking at. I'm saying no one in the Black community has ever seen a reparation before. Reparations has been paid out to other people, but no one in the Black community has ever seen something like that. So if you're going to have something like this, the UBI would actually be a perfect case study as to how to compensate people who may have been disadvantaged, right? So if you're using UBI, you
how? Just back to your premise. Why is it a model or a template, or how can it inform our questions about how reparations could work? How could UBI inform the reparations distribution discussion?
because of how the compensation works.
How does it work?
The way the compensation works for UBI is based on a certain it's based on a target demographic. In this case, they've targeted low income areas, which was usually Black and brown areas. Now, when they target these people with this demographic, it's easy for them to track how to dole out these payments and how the payments are actually being spent.
So
Right?
the UBI that you're talking about, that this is a concept that someone's talking about, not being universal. So the universal basic income is a flat fee to everybody. You don't have to qualify for it. It's not weighted where this group gets it and another one doesn't, or this one gets more and this other group gets less. That's universal. Basic income is universal and unweighted.
Well, it's universal in the way that the government would compensate people who cannot make their ends meet because they've been displaced by a fourth industrialized industry, right?
So that's another proposal. This is a new idea you're talking about, but I'm just saying that's not what universal basic income is. It's intentionally, what's the word? Non-discriminatory, non-discretionary, like that. It's just everybody gets it. It's by design, not intended to care that you need about need. It's intentionally not need based. That's what UBI is. It's intentionally not need based. And what we're talking about is something the antithesis of that. It's like universal income is what you pay when you don't want to pay reparations or welfare based on need. So that's why I say you can't have the conversation about UBI and reparations as one conversation.
Actually, you can. That's already been proven that it can be done. You disagree with it because of the universal aspect of it. What other people are saying is that the way that this is being structured can actually be a template for how you would dole out reparations. You're still looking at the universal aspect. I'm saying the structure in the program application behind it is actually how reparations would be enforced as a mechanism.
So the UBI is not universal. The structure is not. The distribution method is not universal.
No, not necessarily. It's not. You're not.
Okay.
Donald Trump is not going to get UBI. He's just not going to get it. He doesn't even qualify for it, right? So when they say universal basic income, they're saying universal in the sense that it's going to compensate people for their inability to sustain a quality of life that would have been there had their job had they not been displaced in the first place.
Okay. So now the model for this exists where?
They've been doing pilot. Um, they've been doing pilot programs the last 2 or 3 years. I believe Stockton, California has run their pilot program. I know in Massachusetts they have run theirs. I know in Europe they have run their programs as well. The United Nations has been doing the piloting in other countries.
And
So
those are need based. I'm asking.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the whole entire how the program has been designed. I'm only understanding that they've actually piloted the programs.
Gotcha. Interesting. Needs the details.
Well, they're not sharing. They're not sharing all the details for whatever reason. I guess because they want to keep the study blind as much as possible, right? So, in reference to how reparations would look like, I think it's interesting that they want to have this whole pilot program. This HR 40 when they already have a museum in Washington D.C. that actually tells them what exactly what they did and how grotesque it was. So if I was on that board, I would force Donald Trump or whoever is in office to actually go inside that museum and sit in there for the next 8 hours and deal with the consequences of what you're looking at. The people who are against it most are the ones who don't understand it, who understand the least. I was watching a famous YouTuber, not YouTuber, but actually a journalist, and he says, "Well, I don't think it's fair to take money from a poor white person and give it to a black person." And I'm scratching my head. I'm saying, I don't think you quite understand. This person's a historian. I don't think you quite understand that this is owned by the government. It has nothing to do with taking anything from a poor white person and giving it to a black person. But that's the mentality that goes into this. And because you have that, it's difficult to have the conversation of HR 40 without people freaking out about, the ignorance of the whole entire history of this country. And I find it interesting that a historian has this difficult of a time understanding, how impactful, Jim Crow was and how impactful slavery was overall. They just seem to look at the high level and say somebody has to lose in order for black people to win, and that's not usually the case. The government owes something to a certain group of people, and they need to pay up for it. My position now is that, or it has always been, where is the leverage that black people have to actually get this going? How do you shake down the government to actually compensate you if you are a descendant, if you are ADOS, if you are American descendant of slavery?
I guess I see that scenario differently.
Okay.
This is what you just, it's 55 and gray hair and been to too many meetings with allegedly enlightened liberal white folks, okay, on my job for too many decades. I no longer buy the premise that they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's something in us, black people. I think we're delusional. We don't want to accept that they do understand. We got a problem accepting that they are really not stupid.
Mm-hmm.
They really do know very well. And that to us is unconscionable that somebody could be, we don't want to call it evil. It is evil. And we don't want to go there. So we would rather pretend that they don't understand and that we just need to explain it better. We need to listen to what they're saying. After all these decades and multiple generations of us explaining this, they absolutely hear it all. They have an advantage and they like it. Nobody's interested in your equality but you or we, but us. And we gotta, come to that. We gotta come, we're gonna have to work and compete our way out of this. I'm not saying don't fight for legislation. I'm all for that. So I'm, I'm, what is it? What's the brother? Tone Talk, and what's her name? That Carnell. I mean, my only issue with them is when they discourage entrepreneurship. I mean, we can do both. I'll vote, pursue reparations, and proper equity in the voting, districting, and all of that. Yeah, and we also need to pursue some other remedies that don't come from the government. It's not an either or.
I just want to address a couple of points in the chat. Paul says that UBI equals no reparations. I don't know why people are still making this connection that if you get UBI, you don't get reparations. It has, the two are separate from each other, as they're two different mechanisms of compensation. One does not have to negate the other. He also says that Native American reparations is the model. Jew reparations is the model. Yes and no. Jewish reparations is actually an interesting case study that Black people should actually pay attention to. If you, we covered an article a month or so ago talking about this, but Jewish reparations even they have to find all of these people who were allegedly in these facilities held captive for at least 6 months. A lot of those people have long gone. Those Jewish people. So I'm still interested in understanding who are they compensating if the majority of those people are long gone. In order for you to have been to have the foggiest of memory of a camp, of an internment camp in Europe, you would have to be of a certain age and of a certain mindset today to really recollect as to whether or not you were present. Not saying that everybody has Alzheimer's, but I'm just saying that people's memory becomes a little bit foggy after a certain age, and it's just interesting that they they have to track these people down, because if that was the case, why didn't these people seek therapy? I mean, they should have some kind of documentation on all these people who were supposedly inside these internment camps. But they seem to be finding random Jewish people who are elderly and compensating them because they're Jewish and not because they were actually in these camps. That's just my opinion on this. So Jewish reparations as a model is actually something that people should pay attention to, because there's a lot of thievery that's going on in that form of reparations. We covered an article before that they lost close to $50 million in reparations to people who were never really compensated. The money never made it to them. So, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think the Jews they get the money. It's not. I don't see it as on one level. It's not an ethical or moral thing. It's a power. It's a power dynamic. They get the money because it's in the best interest of the country to give them the money. It's not coming from a place of, okay, this is the right thing to do for moral, ethical reasons. And we're not going to ever get anything until we get to a place of power where there's some benefit to the country of giving us the money. And it's when it matters what we think of America, okay? When it matters to America what we think, that's when we'll get the money. Whenever we get the reparations, it will be no less righteous, ethical, moral. It was always the right thing to do.
Hmm.
It's just it has to do with political expediency and power. When we get to that power, that place of power, where giving us the money buys us some favor. See,
Hmm.
we're not going to get reparations because it helps us out. We're
Hmm.
going to get reparations because it helps them out. Okay, somebody's gonna need to care that we change our opinion of them, and then we'll get the reparations. Nobody cares, man.
Hmm. Let me read a couple more of his comments because he seems to go on. He said kids of Jews are getting the reparations. And see, I think that has to do with I think that has to do with evidence of who those kids are. Well, who the parents were, right? Who were the parents? The parents allegedly the victims inside the internment camp. So it makes sense that if the parent isn't available to receive it, that the next of kin is going to receive it. That's kind of logical. Um, but in terms of reparations for ADOS, that's a very tricky position to take because not every melanated person is actually ADOS. So before you know it, you'll have what's this guy? You'll have Akon and what's the comedian Michael Blackson. Um, you'll have both of them, collecting reparations for something that they themselves did not were never a part of. Essentially, you have somebody like Big Poppy from the Red Sox collecting that as well, despite the fact that he's melanated. He is from the Dominican Republic. Jim Denson says, "I believe we're going to need to take that case to international court on the point of after 1865 we were named citizens, but then were not treated as such." I think the issue with 1865 is that it predates the United Nations. So the United Nations Charter was set up long after, at least 100 years after 1865, in order to establish that point. Now, and I wanted to do a hangout on this too. The United Nations Charter, Chapter 7, actually reflects several of these areas where um, the basic necessities of human growth and development. Um, each country that signed up for the United Nations actually has to comply with their obligations that they signed up for in 1971 under United Nations. The problem is that the United States government is in constant violation of the United Nations Charter based on on the treatment of African Americans or members of ADOS. I've always argued that I think it's insulting to give black people just money and then call it a day. Um, there has to be institutional building behind reparations, because there was a lot more than money that was lost. There were physical land and institutions that was lost as well. So having institutions um, be rebuilt and actually newly established would actually be beneficial, more beneficial than just the money itself. How would they be compensated would be through something like treasury bonds, something that's backed by the U.S. government and as a security. Let's see if we can go a little bit longer till 10:30. Read some of these comments. Yeah, that's actually a good point, into gravity. That once you pay people reparations, then they can no longer go back to the government on their about inequality. You can no longer go back to them and talk about that. You've already closed the door on that discussion. Right, Dr. Phoenix. I'm not saying that reparations um, just includes money. I'm saying if you listen to the discussions on social media about reparations, it's always about money to them, to those people who are discussing it. They're always focused on just cash money. Um, they never focus on institutional building. They always seem to focus on how much money is going to be they're going to be doled out, and how much they can spend on whatever they want to spend it on, and don't interrupt their cash flow. Just worry about some other things, and it's like that's not what reparations is for.
And they also, people think in terms of the bounty of money for their ancestors will all fall in their lap and not the unborn. How
You mean the
selfish is that?
you,
It's like we say, "Oh, pay us for the past, pay us all. We want the check right now in cash in 2019." As opposed to, we need money over a period, or resources, and support and structure over a period, not just for the people living today. We have to create. It took us many generations to get to this level of these levels of dysfunction, and it's going to take us several generations to get out of it, and we're going to need structural support through beyond our lifetime. As somebody 50, 60 years old listening to this, we have to be thinking beyond our lifetime.
mhm.
What we're experiencing is a result of our ancestors, what they experienced before we were born, up to and through our life. And so the same is going to be true, likely to be true for your grandkids. But we say, well, give me my check right now, and what I do with it is nobody's business. Yeah, it's everybody's business.
Mhm.
And people say, so what if I want to buy rims? Just not for you.
And see that, and that's the mentality, right? I should be able to spend my money on whatever I want. That's all they see reparations as, the immediate financial compensation of something that they themselves either have a clear understanding of or don't have a clear understanding of. And then they'll defend that point round and round, but um not really understand the impact of what it is that they're saying.
Right.
because once the money goes out, that's it, man. You can't say, well, this person wasn't born yet, so therefore, you know, we gotta leave some leftover payment for these people too. They don't. From what I'm reading on social media, they don't seem to care very much about unborn people. I mean, you got kids that are born now that are not being taken care of either,
Right.
just by their own parents. They don't seem to really have that much of a care. So reparations for Black people is very, or for at least for ADOS is very tricky.
What difference
'Cause
does it make to America that we uh, feel, think, and feel that we're owed something and not getting it? There's no consequence to the country for that. That's why, whenever, those military conversations come up, I always throw out, you need to be, tie that in with reparations. If you stop giving that away for free, maybe the country might have some incentive to want to give you some reparations. Because now they get an immediate gain. You want to make me feel differently? I mean, what's the consequence to the country that we don't feel supported, or have not been made whole? Well, if our consequence to that was we didn't join, we were not voluntarily enlisting in military service, that might make the country say, well, we need to change the way they feel about being American.
mm-hmm.
It would take something like that, or Africa start to come up and African Americans start repatriating, and America says, we need to change that trend. Something has to happen to incentivize America to want to give us that money for their interest. It won't be no act of charity. It's going to be self-serving if we ever get it.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we willing to do to compel them to want to give it to us?
There's some comments in the chat if you want to read them off.
Let's see. The same way of tax refund. Well, Paul, if you give the masses of Black people cash, the masses who aren't capable of making returns, now they have cash money. What emphasis will they have to change anything if they can spend now? My response to that, Paul, is that's what we were talking about earlier, why it can't be a one-time payment to one generation. It can't. We have to have some insurance against I guess bad irresponsibility at every level of socioeconomic level. Okay, we don't want to put somebody with the means to start tricking it off. Okay, so he could do that, give it to an ex. So yeah, we need some protection against our irresponsibility at every level. And I've heard people say things like, well, what does Oprah need with reparation? Yeah, give it to her. Yeah. I don't think that we should exclude Black people based on the fact that they attain wealth, or some level of comfort. I mean, we fall in and out of middle class a lot. We have, people, we in our time in this country, we escape poverty, get to middle class, fall out of middle class in our lifetime. Okay, let alone the next generation.
Well, some people would argue that Black mothers receiving child support payments as a form of reparations for Black men.
That's ridiculous.
Hey, it's out there. It's out there.
I think they should be banned from the discussion.
Well, if you think about it, they're collecting a payment as a form of compensation and restitution for the child that they bared, whether the child is biologically his or not. They're extracting money from this person.
Man, we'd have to ramp up a whole nother show on that, and I would really lose people then, because if you really going to get down on it, the children are a benefit to the nation. So welfare, the citizenry should be paying it anyway, because you can't have a citizenry without people. Okay, so at the end of the day, whether the father or the male is taking care of the child or not, and at a certain level, it doesn't matter, because the country needs that child to be a responsible contributing to society, irrespective of what the father does. It's in the best interest of the country to raise that child, give that child welfare, proper health care, proper education, and so on and so forth. Because that child is going to benefit society.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is arguing or debating whether or not Black people should be paid, compensated financially. I think that's already been established,
No,
right?
I was arguing that when you
No, I'm
get
not saying you.
welfare,
I'm not saying you. I'm saying just there's a change of gears.
yes,
Because I see some comments in the chat.
yeah, I hear I was just, it was a roundabout way of saying that welfare is not reparations for the Black man who didn't take care of his kids. That's a whole. That's a told you. I will take that out. That's a whole nother conversation how you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And no, I'm not supporting irresponsibility, but I'm just saying I fast tracked a statement that I would have made at the end of an hour-long conversation, where I would have checked all the boxes, where to let you know I'm not promoting irresponsibility and I'm promoting personal accountability, but still I'm against the whole let it burn mentality that a lot of people have. No.
Mm-hmm.
The civilization has to protect itself. The culture has to protect, not just Black culture, American culture. Every country has to protect itself. And so, if that means passing the hat around to to everyone, we'll be talking socialism. Okay, if we talking that, if that's what it takes to ensure the survival of the country, then that's what you do. Because it's not, in the end, it's not about you, the individual. It's about the welfare of the state.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the children are the future.
Oh man, here you go. You need to put that cognac down, man. No, I think there's ways of going about this, man, strategically, man. You need guys like Dr. Claudia Anderson to really be in on these discussions. The people who are involved in politics, who can actually navigate their way around this, so that it can actually be doled out. But I also think that there should be social equity programs developed for issues that are happening right now. Whether we talk about the legalization of cannabis, or we're talking about um, business business and startup accelerators inside predominantly Black neighborhoods, um, maker labs, and
Let me ask you a question.
innovation centers. Yes.
Paul put up a comment saying basically he doesn't want anybody giving him money, and he said more than that, but I've heard that sentiment too, of people saying that if they receive reparations, or if we receive reparations, we will be stigmatized, and so they don't want it for that reason. So, one, what do you think of that idea? Two, do you think that people should be able to just exempt out for them and their lineage?
I think there would be some kind of some form of child bonds or something like that would be the way you negate your way out of it, right? So you say, oh well, don't pay me this way, pay me another way, or just don't give it to me at all. Well, that would have to go back into a different instrument that allows other people within the community to actually benefit too. So
Yeah.
I think there's ways of going about this. Like if I wanted to negate it and say, oh well, I don't want it. Let's renege on this. I don't feel comfortable taking it. Well, um, maybe I can say let's make this transferable into a different instrument, like a 520, right? What do you call that?
College saving plan.
Yeah, college savings plan. I was gonna say that. Thank you. Maybe I could put it into one of those instruments, or a different type of vehicle, and that way it's not completely lost, right? It actually goes to another child. I've always been of the opinion that there needs to be some form of technological measurement or instrument in place that allows us to adopt some of those kids in these neighborhoods, and actually send them on a complete path. Um, whether I want the whether I want the reparations or not, I think it should be. I think, because what happens if you got your reparations and then you walk into the front of a Mack truck and you get knocked down? What happens then? What's the if and the full process behind that?
Right.
I don't think a lot of this stuff isn't really thought out. It's different when you talk about Native Americans because they have land and things like that they can really trace back. But when it comes to ADOS, it's difficult because everybody's all over the place in terms of their views and their politics, and therefore you can't really make a sweeping uh, um, policy that can actually compensate everyone equally. You have some people who are against it, then you have some people who are not against it, and more people who are in favor of it. But then you also have other people, who may. I mean, are the payments protected in the way that says, my cousin Dollar Will says I owe him $10,000 on the old Acura that I totaled, back in 1995, and now he wants his money back. So he takes first position on my reparations because he's a family member and he's ADOS too.
It's a mess, man. I just think that some people, some ideas that people are saying, man, just should just be ignored, and we got to put our effort into deciding who's on that committee deciding if it ever comes up. See, this is it. This is just like a political football to get somebody elected, or at least get the Democratic nomination. That's really, I can't take this seriously until we get past an election and something concrete is before us. We're talking about it. We're arguing about talking about it within the context of a presidential election. So we definitely getting pimped here. Played or whatever. Definitely. There's no way we can really be all in serious on this and really believe that this is like a serious discussion and not just a political ploy to win the Democratic nomination.
Anti-Gravity in the chat said let me read this first. Digital Underground Sales and Marketing says, how did they pay out the Jews? They already have a model. The Jews are a different case than ADOS. I understand what you're saying, but they're a completely different case. You try to use it, but it only goes so far because there's so much impact that has happened to ADOS in comparison to Jews. Jews was a very temporary period. So it's easily traceable and whatnot. And even the Nazi soldiers went out of their way to destroy the evidence, that they what they did even happened. So that's why it's easy for them to kind of trace everything back because it was such a short period of time. And plus, a lot of those Jews who are receiving payments may or may not have been involved in the internment camps. They may have not even been captured at one point. They could have been somewhere in Brazil or Argentina, sipping on tea somewhere when this was all happening. Anti-Gravity in chat says, what kind of infrastructure needs to be in place before reparations gets handed out? You need all types of infrastructure in terms of institutional building. Um, a black Federal Reserve or some kind of black um, chamber of reparations that where the money actually goes and sits in there and is protected by military. You would need some kind of black military to protect all that stuff. So that if you've ever been in the Federal Reserve before, you know what I'm talking about. That place is so airtight. You can't do anything. I was in Boston during the Boston Marathon bombing, and the Federal Reserve is ways away from the bombing, but they was out there and like something I had never seen before. I never seen the Federal Reserve Police actually come out there and lock down 2 or 3 square blocks. They were out there like they were Blackwater. And if you even thought about getting close to the building, they will shake you down. So that's the sort of security that you would need around an institution to receive those type of payments, because there's many various ways that you can receive, um, compensation, whether it's through the IRS and an electronic payment or through government bonds and treasury notes and other instruments. There's ways of going about it, but I think it should go into one central place, and everybody should have to fly to that place or drive to that place to go get their compensation. That way, it's fully protected. Because trying to send it through the mail and it gets intercepted by somebody, and there's all types of various ways. People never received it.
I tell you what I would do.
Hmm.
If I was on that, I'd probably have to leave America because everybody would be looking for me, boy. I would, if there was a part of it that involved the cash payment, I would make. There's no way that someone unemployed or or on assistance outside of some health related support, some medical assistance. I'm making an exemption for that. But someone in need of job training or something like that to allow them to move up the ranks, there's no way that I would give them cash without the condition that you go get this training. I'd look over to the Bureau of Labor, uh, what do you call it? The labor statistics, BLS.gov. The information is already there. They've always had the information there about which careers project to be viable, 10 years down the road. I would make receiving the money contingent on the person passing a training program from a list that we provide, and everything on the list is viable. And so, and it would have to be a field that pays a middle class income at least, and that training would be free. So you get the training, now you can get the money. And you can't even get the daggone low interest mortgage and any mortgage kind of support. No, you have to get this training, get a viable income, and now we'll open up other support to you. Because if you can discipline yourself to go through a structured program to and hey, maybe even work on the job for a year or two. How about 2 years on the job? How about that? That would force it. Like I said, I'd have to leave the country because people would be looking to assassinate me for putting that policy in there. Because you're definitely not going to get this money and go get some fly club gear and trick it off. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, Paul Bryant makes an excellent point in the chat. He says, people love to mention the Jews got paid. No, no, no. German Jewish who had property taken were paid money, not the majority of the 6 million Jewish people killed in camps. So that was the point that I was trying to make before, that the Jewish situation is a lot more unique in the sense that there were still people around to actually recover a lot of the for the compensation. Whereas in ADOS, man, that's they're 10, 12, 18 generations out of the situation that they should have been compensated for. So that's actually an excellent point that Paul makes, that they did get their property back and things like that. The problem is that Palestinians never got their property back at all, and they're still losing their property to this very day. But that's that's another issue. I plan on going into deeper on Palestinian, Palestinian violations, human rights violations. Yeah, I agree with you, Paul. I agree with you, Paul. The German Jewish situation doesn't compare to ADOS. I agree with you. Very different. Um, AKA West says, I don't understand the point of trying to police what people do with their money. I don't think anybody's trying to police it. I think the problem is that in this regard is that
I'll defend it. I'm trying to police it because it's a solution for a group. It's not a remedy for we're trying to raise up a group. So it's not your personal business. That's the thing that we think of it as, this is mine and my business. No, it's ours. We got to get tribal on this. It's ours, all of ours, and everybody coming up is in the best interest of everybody.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, we gotta have that fight, that argument. We're not just a collection of individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm doing my thing and my personal freedom, my way. No. So maybe we would have to have that argument before we ever get a penny. We got to get clear on that.
Well, I was just trying to make the point that not everybody was trying to police it, but I get the point that he's trying to make. It does need to have some form of we need to have some form of regulatory standards inside the Black community. We talked about this many times before, but there's lack of standards, and lack of standards leads to lack of organization, and lack of organization leads to lack of a hierarchy. So therefore, there's this constant strife amongst Black people collectively that, there's this sort of tug of war that will lead to eventual civil war for Black people. You're assuming that every individual thinks like a group, but that's a part of the problem. I think that's what Dollar Will is getting to. He's trying to.
Yeah. In fact, what I'm doing is I would proceed with this. Like I said, I'd have to leave the country because my premise would be you don't have the right to have no individual opinion. See, I have to leave the country. You don't have no right to have no individual opinions. No, we're not going to. No, you can pick from this list of things you want to skill if you need one. The ones people who already have a skill or self-sustaining or whatever. Now they can do what they want, with the part that's cash. But we're trying to get this. We're trying to take this underclass that we have and raise them up. And if we could do it in 1 or 2 generations, that would be great. And so you can't let a group. Some people have to look. We see people tell the stories about how their life was out of control and they didn't get it together until they went in the military and somebody forced it on them. The bottom line is when you have grown folks who are been caught in a web of dysfunction for generations, they can't fix it themselves. We watch people make bad decisions. When I was in my 20s and living in apartments, I drove old car, I noticed $50,000-$60,000 a year on $50,000-$60,000 cars in the parking lot in the apartment complex where I live. Now I was in my early 20s. I thought that was crazy then. And I think it's crazy now. I mean, when I had my house, for 20 something years, the guys living in the apartment complexes had better cars than me. Something's wrong. That has to those that kind of value system is not going to change on its own.
Mm-hmm. We got a thumbs down.
I know.
The Paul says in the chat, y'all just don't want reparations and resources for ADOS. Y'all think most ADOS is trash. Just say that and stop talking in circles.
No, I don't think ADOS is trash. I wouldn't. If I thought that, I wouldn't even think ADOS was worth. I am ADOS. I wouldn't even think we will be worth my energy even having this conversation. I wouldn't be on the brain trust for that reason. I wouldn't be here in this community of primarily black men, black ADOS men. I don't understand that comment.
I'm not sure who this Paul guy is. I only know one Paul. That's Paul Bryant.
No, I've seen him by this Paul. He's been by a lot. We just disagree today, brother. Come back next week. To make sure. I see him a lot. He's a regular. So what's up, bro? We just keep it coming. We can debate. One of these times that you're gonna have to hop on, man. The debate will go better if you get on the panel.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get on?
Anti-gravity says, for the people who say it's not your business what I do with the money, what if people get cash payments and the black people's plight doesn't improve? Then what? Who is to blame?
That's gonna happen. What's up? We human.
I don't think anybody's to blame if things don't improve, right? Because black people are a cog in the wheel. They don't really control the economic institutions and infrastructure of this country, or the West for that matter. So lack of political representation is really the biggest problem for black people, especially black men. There's nobody to represent you in a positive light, in your best interest at this point. And it hasn't been anybody around for quite some time, probably since Jesse Jackson. And maybe what's his brother from DC, the mayor of DC. He passed away. What's his
Marion
brother?
Barry.
Yeah, Marion Barry. You don't have those type of black men out there anymore that can politically represent your best interests. And I know a lot of people put their weight behind Obama, thinking that this was going to be their shining moment, and it turned out to be a dud for the most part.
And that's the benefit of having a multi-generational reparation effort, because I might blow it at my shot, but then there's more support coming for your kids and your grandkids. Maybe they go like, look, I'm not gonna screw this up like Dad did. We get another shot at it. I mean, because presumably, let's say we have reparations, presumably your child and grandchild will be better educated than you were. So in theory, they should be more responsible with whatever reparations that they, get. But I would not trust the first wave. The first wave of blacks to receive the money, I wouldn't trust us. I got just one chart thing to show.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Ran out of gas, man. I was gonna. All right. Let me see. What is it? All right. The lesson for today is called put call ratio. Options market. Options market is where you can purchase the option. You can purchase the right to buy a large number of shares at a later date, but not the obligation or price. That's a gross uh, uh, definition of it. But the bottom line is there's a lot of activity that happens in the options market that gives you an indication of the opinion of the marketplace, the sentiment. Okay, so you have people betting for betting that the market will go up, and that's a call option. And then you have people betting that I'm not going to say the instrument. It could be the S&P 500. It could be Apple. So I don't want to say it could be a bet that the market go up or down. It could be a bet that a particular stock go up or down. So either or. And so a put call ratio is a measurement that is widely used by investors to gauge the overall mood of the market. A put or put option is a right to sell an instrument, to sell an asset at a predetermined price. A call option is a right to buy an asset at a predetermined price. Let me just jump right down here. A put option gets the trader the right to sell an option. If traders are buying more puts than calls, it signals a rise in bearish sentiment. I'm going to drop this in the chat so y'all can read this over. But the bottom line is we had, they took it down. The data, okay, Friday, we had options expire every Friday. The ones that expired today on bar chart, they took the information down. And it had a put call ratio. So although the market was up today, the put call ratio was in favor of, you can see the volume, there were more bets against the market, and this is the S&P 500, than for the market. Okay, so anything above, some sites say 0.7 or 1, and anything above, let's just say 1.0, is pretty extreme pessimism. Okay. Now, the open interest is, okay, this is the volume just for today. Put volume total, that's for today. And the open interest is all of the people who are holding a position on today. They may have opened that position a week ago, 2 weeks ago. So in both cases, the volume showed that the sentiment was negative, and the open interest total was also negative. So there were more people betting against the market than for it in the options market. And so it's like I said, if that ratio is 1.0 or less, that's pretty good for optimism. More than 1.0, that's pretty negative. So that's more than 2.47 times negative. Okay, and the open interest is 3.25 times negative. So you can multiply this 3.25 times 27,766, and you get that. Okay, that's the short of it. So why? How did the price go up? Short positions, this is kind of complicated. Short positions, when you short a stock, you're borrowing the stock from your broker. Now, when you say to your broker, I want to short this stock, the short position begins with the purchase of a stock. So although you're betting against it, the broker it purchases the stock that you're borrowing, that you're shorting. So you're basically borrowing the stock, and you're going to return it to them at a later date at a lower price, and you keep the depreciation of it. That's the long the details of what the mechanics of what's really going on with the short. Now that shows up in the market as bullish and the price going up. It's only in the options market do you get a hint whether that rise in the price was real optimism or whether it was bearish in nature because these were purchases destined as shorts. So if this market takes a big drop soon, like in a week or so or whatever. What I just said to you, don't worry about it, because everybody will point to this data of this put call ratio, and they'll say, okay, we it was already in the card. So, like I said, the one that the data for the options that expired today, they took it down on the site. So this is one that expires on the 15th. So that would be Monday. So this particular S&P option expires on Monday, and that's your put call ratio. This one here expires on Friday, a week from now, and here's the put call ratio for that. So it's still more put volume than call volume. It's still more put open interest than call open interest. So don't believe the hype. That's what I'm saying. So this market is going higher, but that put call ratio is saying that something is weird. Something is weird. And that's real data right there. So I just wanted to hit y'all with that, because if you hear somebody, let me drop this link to the article I just I'm sorry, the put call ratio article that you guys can read, and you can maybe there's a Google, a video in YouTube, you can check it out. But the put call ratio is a lot of whales, a lot of rich folks, they try to hide what they're doing in the options market. They might buy, like when you buy an options contract, one contract will control 100 shares of a stock or an ETF or whatever the thing is, whatever the asset is. And so what a lot of rich folks will do, big money whales, they'll go in the options market and buy the contract there, so that they don't affect the price of the stock too much. So they're trying to sneak. But they show their hand in the options market of what they're planning to do in the future. And so even when you don't trade options, it's good to kind of peek over there and see what kind of games they're running behind the scenes, in the options market. And I got that technique from the guy on Fast Money years ago. The Nigerian brothers on Fast Money on CNBC, when they explained that that's how they pretty much trade. And this was like 4 or 5 years ago. I said, that's pretty slick. And so then I started learning about it from there. And you can learn a lot looking at what's going on in the options market. Paul says, look at the options volume on the CBOE. You're right. I should have gone there. Chicago Board of Options Exchange, to better understand what's going on. It's probably got the data that I'm looking for is probably on that site. You're right, Paul. I should have checked that out. But now that you guys know, Google some videos and about put call options ratio, and just kind of watch how this stuff play out. And now a tell. Now learn one of the secrets of seeing big money moves. That's it.
That's a great way to end this. Thank you all for joining us. If you have not already hit the like button, please do so now. Share the video if possible. Subscribe if you have not already done so. Hit the notification bell so you get all the alerts on when we go live, and some of the commentary that we put inside the community tab. It's a doc in description for you to reference back on. And we will be back tomorrow with Black Tech Talk on Black Teleportation, as well as another open chat will be tomorrow night.